Yeah. Oh, it's being live streamed. Let me see. No.
Morning, everybody. How is everybody doing? Thank you for coming in. We're gonna give people time to stream in. So if you want to get water or anything else, now is the time. Maybe you want some morning snacks on a Friday. We're gonna begin by around 10:05, 10:06. So I'm gonna play some music to ease things in, and you can also maybe have a slow morning. Morning.
Good morning.
How are you, Christian?
I'm all right. How are you?
Doing well. It's a
Great.
slow-ish kind of Friday, nice, and it's like kind of like like you want to sit in with a good book kind of weather outside.
It is, yeah.
Morning, Jorina.
Morning.
It is way earlier for you than it is for us. You are 2.5 hours behind Singapore?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow. So it must be 7:30?
Yeah, 7:30 a.m.
Very morning indeed.
Pretty cold.
What's the temperature there now?
Temperature. Temperature is around 12.
That is very different from where we are.
Yep, I'm in the mountains.
Give us 2 more minutes and then we will begin. Are you a tea person or a coffee person, Christian?
Well, you'd think being a Brit, I would be all about tea. I was for a good length of my life, but then yeah, I discovered coffee when I was a teenager, and then suddenly decided, okay, that's the way to go. And yeah, it's especially in the morning, it does the job.
It does. It
Gets the
does.
brain firing.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. My partner has this thought, which is like, in the morning, I want coffee that's going to wake me up, and that's not necessarily the good coffee, because the good coffee sometimes is so enjoyable that he feels like he wants to sit back and relax and not wake up. Hello to Joelle, who just popped in. New name, new face, no pressure. If you feel like you don't want to turn on your camera, that's also okay. But if you feel like you want to join in the conversations, feel free to join in either in the chat or maybe unmute and share later. Okay, so it's around 10:05. Maybe there might be some other people streaming in a little later, but for the most part, I think we are good to begin as we start today's session. So let me just share my screen and we will get started. It's always like when you're doing full screen presentations, it's a weird flow of going full screen, then coming back to Zoom and then sharing that screen. Yeah, okay, I found it. Can everybody see my screen? All right, thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. I really appreciate you being with me here on this nice, cozy Friday morning. Hopefully we get to learn something new, and this is a rabbit hole. You can dive as deep as you want, and I'm hoping to get you interested, get you curious, and I think the most important thing is the part here is it's no code, low code. That means you don't have to be an expert at any type of thing. You just need to have an idea and you'll be able to move forward with it. And custom means you can build it to your liking, your personal preferences. So there's really no right or wrong answers. So today I'm encouraging you to make ideas or come up with interesting ideas that you never thought were possible or you never thought you'd go there. So I'm encouraging you to keep an open mind. So let's begin. Today's going to be a live session, so there might be some new things you might be learning. So our focus is mainly to understand first, what is a no-code, low-code tool or a platform? Why is that going to be helping us? And then how to identify opportunities for AI integration in these moments. Like, what are you already doing in your life, or what do you hope you wish you were doing either in life or your work life that you feel like has an opportunity to integrate here? And remember, experience comes with time. So when you first begin, don't feel like you have to do everything or it's a giant leap. I have created a structured way to go about figuring out how to go from maybe level 1 to expert, so that you also have a mental map of how you can progress the more you practice. And hopefully you get to gain more confidence using AI tools and building workflows for yourself today. Yes, stay open, stay curious. I would love to hear your stories. It's a nice, cozy room today. As much as I have a lot of things to share during the section where we're going to be diving into creating something or workshopping something, it's there for everybody to join in and say, hey, this is on my mind, or this could be possible for me. And I think we'll do an amalgamation of everything combined, so you have an idea of something very specific that you were looking for. And then as you're sharing or jumping in, remember that everybody has a unique perspective and unique use cases. So do respect everybody's perspective and share with kindness. And I would love it if you engage actively, so that you can make the most of this session. So if you have your phone with you or maybe another device, go to menti.com and then use the code 4177-4248. Oh, I see a chat. gonna grab a phone. So go to menti.com and use the code 41774248 and share how familiar are you with these things. I think it will help me get a sense of what to spend more time on or what to spend less time on. And collectively, this will help us understand where we are as a room together. I will know if you're not on the phone on the screen, so I encourage you to come join in. Go to menti.com and use the code 41774248. And then if you feel like it, give me a thumbs up if you already voted, but I know there's 2 people who already voted. So I'm just gonna wait for maybe one more. Go to, oh yeah, nice. Okay. So wait for a quick half minute in case anybody else is voting and hasn't quite finished. So you generally not that familiar with no-code platforms. Okay, noted. But you are reasonably becoming more familiar with using AI tools in your workflow. I see that one person is not that familiar, and I think that's okay. Together, what we're going to talk about today hopefully will get you more ideas on how you can engage in your workflow. And then you are not very familiar with creating custom workflows using multiple tools. Okay, so I think that's a good start. Thank you all for sharing. Keep your phone handy. Every once in a while, we might go back to it to share your thoughts. But as you can see, it's a cozy session. So at any point when I'm going to move forward, if you want to add or anything, you can just type it in the chat or maybe, unmute and share. It's going to be easy. So quick, question, what do you know or what do you think about no-code, low-code platforms? They don't have to be like textbook perfect answers. I think it's just to gauge like where your mind is at or what sort of mental formations you have about what they are or even what the, if you don't know anything, like what do you think it could do potentially just by its name? I think that's helpful to share. Again, no right or wrong answers. We all start with initial perceptions and then we feel our way through things. So I think it'll be interesting to hear the group come together. Drag and drop, yeah. Potentially. We've seen a lot of drag and drop in like a lot of other tools as well, not just in the field of AI or automation. Yeah, there's a question. Automation, yeah, possibly. Yeah, so one thing I want to share is no code, low code. For example, you probably all heard of ChatGPT is a no code, low code tool already, meaning like for you to interface with something so advanced in doing complicated things, we're not being asked to write code to talk with it. That means it's already one step ahead. Like we can chat with it, we can converse with it. So that means we're at a place where we are already using some low code, no code platforms for some more advanced things. So that essentially means we're not developers, we're not engineers, we're not going to write lines of code or something complicated. Typically, these are done when, like information needs to move back and forth or something like a hyper-specific instruction needs to be given, but they're not human and they're built in a format where database and knowledge is just stored in very technical formats that's not easily accessible. So ease of use, yes, definitely. And I think maybe to somebody who's really, really trained and is somebody who can code, maybe to them it's like, oh, I don't know, I could just do this on my own. Maybe I'll write a line of code. But again, it's very subjective. If you are somebody who's not going to be doing that, then low code, no code could be very easy for you to use as compared to that uphill climb of trying to learn a new skill that may not be that relevant to you. Okay, thank you for your input. So I think that gives me a sense of where you might be at. just to get a sense. It's okay if you may not have heard about any of these tools or some of them, but just in a sense, has there been anything you've used in your workflow before? If you've heard of them, maybe don't vote for it, but then you can put in the chat if you've only heard of them before. And it could be possibly like, I have like a long list of things that I'm like, yeah, one day I will try, and I don't really get around to it. Notion. Yeah, have you used Notion, Juvina? You've used Notion. Okay, wonderful. ChatGPT you've used in your workflow. Nice. If anybody else has used Notion in your workflow, you can give Juvina's comment an emoji reaction and we'll know. You've used other AI chatbots. Out of curiosity, for anybody who voted other AI chatbots, you can put in the chat or unmute and share. Christian, I know you use Gemini. It's one of the leading models out there right now. I do also want to share, like apart from Gemini, it seems to be really popular because every model is trained differently. And so they tend to do tasks better. And what do I mean by better? It's like, sometimes when you get AI to write something for you and then it's like, oh, that's so cringy. I wish I can tell that it's written by an AI, for example. So then some of these models, as they become more trained with data, they become more nuanced. Maybe it's able to give you a better quality output. Maybe you're able to get to your end output a little faster. You've been using Perplexity since the last class. Yeah, nice. We'll be curious to hear later how you can use that into some of your workflows. So then what happens is these AI chatbots all do different things or get better at different things. But ChatGPT released their newest model called 4.0 not too long ago. But then typically, if you do not have a paid account, you would not have access to it. And you would have like a lower tiered version, which is 3.5 that was available to public. But good news, if you've been meaning to use more of ChatGPT or wanted to try any of their other features, they're going to release all of that and roll it out for free. So you can make custom GPTs. You can use their memory feature to save information about yourself to your ChatGPT account. You can use the 4.0 model, which is really advanced. And I think they're going to start rolling out all of that for free users as well. The only difference between a paid plan and a free plan would be just the quantity of how many maybe like how many inputs or prompts and output you can get from the model within a given time period. So that's going to be something for you to try out if you're interested. Okay, thank you for voting. So generally, ChatGPT, chatbots, very accessible as a starting point for no-code, low-code tools. And then I can see there's like a gap in the middle, which is Zapier, Make.com, APIs, and webhooks. Quick shout out, like, if you've heard of them but have not tried them, anybody who's heard of them but not tried them? I see some nods. Which ones have you heard of? If you want to jump in. Zapier. Okay. Nice. Okay, so lots of use cases, and I think don't feel like everything has to be for an organization. The reason why some of these tools exist is to make all of these workflows accessible to someone who's like even a solo person or like a smaller team. So let's see how we can utilize it. Okay, so just out of curiosity, when you thought of this or when you read of this, were there any specific workflows that came to mind? Or maybe you were like, I'm interested in learning about that. If you could sort of set an intention for your own learning also in this space, that's welcome. But otherwise, any ideas around what you're curious about are also welcome. I think this will help me shape how much I share on Show What to you based on what you are looking for. So feel free to take this space and share what might be most relevant to you. Take a minute if you need some time to think about it. Sometimes it's not always obvious where an AI workflow can come in. So if you need to workshop some things, I'll give you some time, a couple of minutes. So if you're not yet on Menti, you can go to menti.com and use the code 41774248. Okay, organizing and creating content. Nice. Being able to build and change accordingly to a work requirement. Creation of strategies, marketing. Get to grips with the formats before executing the creative elements. Okay, noted. For the person who may have typed in organizing and creating content, would you be able to share either in chat or maybe unmute and share, like what sort of content did you have in mind, particularly?
Like we have different types of content, like photos, videos, and sometimes they are like in different stages of development, and it can be a bit messy when there's like too much ideas.
Mm,
Yeah.
okay.
So yeah, we'll probably need help, need a workflow to help to organize them. So there is make sure that all of them get output,
Okay.
get put out, published. Yeah, from ideation stage to publish.
Okay, ideate to publish. Yeah, it's very true. Like sometimes content or marketing or any sort of publishing, there's so many ideas on the back, and then it's like and so many formats that we want to output in that it's a constant overwhelm, or even trying to figure out how to be on the ball with everything that we want to push out. So I need to output. And then for the person who shared, being able to build and change accordingly to our work requirement. Don't have to share too much if you don't feel comfortable, but I think it will help me understand the nature or at least the industry or scope of your work, or even like, what type of requirements might we be looking at? Is it like privacy and safety type of requirements? Or is it like job scope expectations, output sort of requirements? I think that will help us understand like what sort of workflows can come in here. If you want to jump in or type in the chat. Skills management. So is it like more HR functions, Ellen? Okay, understood. Okay, so is it like, do you feel like mapping team functions, skill set levels, and then maybe creating growth plans, or potentially even having like a employee database with all of these mapped? Is it kind of like that? Identifying and addressing skill gaps. Oh, okay, I will keep that in mind. And then you feel free to jump in later and actively ask me questions, or even like help me shape my understanding of your requirement, because I have a feeling that you know exactly what you're talking about, but I'm just learning what's on your mind. So you can help me shape what it is. So for example, later when it's relevant, you can share, no, actually this one we gather information when the managers talk to the team, so we can input it this way. Or maybe it could be that, oh, actually I want the system to identify. So like maybe we need to collate certain outputs for us to, and then maybe run it through an algorithm or something to analyze it to identify where the skill level is at, for example. So you will have more insight as to how you'd like to shape it. And then I think there'll be a section where I'll ask you to workshop a little bit, and we'll go into that. Okay. So next one, creation of strategies, get to grips with the formats before executing the creative elements. I'm taking that the creative elements would be more of the design and that sort of things.
Correct. Yeah. So this one was mine. So yeah, the looking at it from the first part of a marketing plan, where you research exactly where you are currently, then you create a strategy, And then out of the strategy, you have all the different creatives and elements that go from that. But without the strategy first, you can't create anything because you don't know which direction you're supposed to be going. So that first element, I'll give you an example. I've said to one of my good friends here in Singapore who owns a resident, what do you call it? Renting and homes company. So he rents. He has an agency basically who rents houses and apartments and so forth, and he wants to market his business. And so he's talking to me about social media and websites, and I'm like, okay, let's take a step back. You've got to come up with a marketing strategy first, and then from that marketing strategy, putting all the elements into that marketing strategy, knowing the landscape, knowing the type of people you're trying to target, then all the creative stuff, your social medias, your websites, all that email marketing can come from that. Because without that strategy, you're just kind of just throwing out ideas out for fun. You're not really, you don't have a North Star. Hope that makes sense.
Yeah.
I need more coffee, obviously.
I understand. Understood. Okay, yes, that's helpful. Thank you for sharing. So we have quite a lot of different use cases, and I have different things that I feel like might help you address it, or maybe give you hidden nuggets on how to apply it. And so we'll walk through these things together. So let's move on. Thank you all for sharing. I really appreciate it. So yeah, so I think one thing is introducing you to no-code, low-code tools. I'm gonna do a quick walkthrough of what they are, so you have a little bit of a sense. But also, I have some section later for us to try to workshop some things, or at least begin laying out the skeletal frameworks for what we're discussing today that might be relevant to some of you in this room. So then I think that's going to be also helpful. So I will be putting the slides later on the Circle platform. So if I see some couple new faces, if you're not already there, you can access the slides there. So don't feel like you need to really take screenshots, or just write down what's relevant for you if you're taking notes, or give yourself a mental memo. But these slides will be available for you to use later if you're seeing any new things on the screen. So first thing is, they'll help you build applications and workflows without writing any code. I think some of you did identify sections of it. The reason is typically this has been a high labor and skill intensive thing that wasn't necessarily accessible to people without that skill. But now we have all these platforms and these new technologies that are enabling movement of information and even building of this infrastructure to easily deploy whatever you'd like to. And so they are very visual interfaces in many cases, and they're pre-built, sometimes components or pre-built actions, or maybe even pre-built templates for you to start with. Some of it can feel a little alien, so don't worry. I think you can start from easier flows when you identify something, and then you can craft your way, level up and craft your way to something more nuanced that really works for you. And then the low code ones are really they're not completely no code. So what do I mean by that? They might be small snippets of customization that you might have to do with code, or maybe understand oh, this is where there's going to be a code output. I need to understand how that interfaces with it. But generally, the good news is in the era of ChatGPT, I can assure you that if you feel lost with anything, rather than Googling how to move forward from there, the easiest answer is always asking ChatGPT to guide you forward from there and give it the context of where you are. So navigating low-code platforms is also not that challenging these days. So I'm encouraging you to just leap in, and it might be a little uncomfortable, but go for it. So it's all of this just simplifies the creation of whatever you have in mind. Sometimes it can be I have a couple actions in mind or tasks in mind that I might want to go more hands-free with, or maybe sometimes it's adding more structure to your work, maybe what Juina was talking about. I have all these ideas, how do I move forward? Then having these platforms structure some of your thoughts, and then moving some of those the stuck parts you feel like could be moved forward without you being there can also be helpful. And then there's like the broader complex things, which is like you could almost build an app to do interesting things, but then it doesn't have to look like an app interface, right? An app is really helping you get information from somebody or push information from there, maybe even at some point make revenue from it. So all of these are very possible on these platforms. And the purpose is really like they're making it easier and easier for more people to access it. So we can create these unique customizations in our own lives. So whether it's at your work or whether it's for your personal life, maybe you decide, you know, hey, I'm focusing on my physical health. So maybe you want to send all of your Apple Watch data directly into a Google Sheets and get something to analyze it for you and categorize it on a daily basis. And then at the end of the week, you get like an email from the whatever you've set up saying, this is how your vitals have been this week. That's cool, right? Like if that tool is already not doing that for you, but you feel like there's value for that, you can do that. In the same way, maybe you're managing your finances in a spreadsheet, for example, and then you want it to like tell you when you've gone over budget or when you're under budget, or maybe just give you like a progress update on maybe a goal that you're working towards financially, or maybe like a project that you are budgeting for. And all of that is very possible. So it can be like a, if this happens, then you do this kind of scenario. So example would be, if my budget exceeds 20% of the allocated budget, send me an error message or a warning message that I'm over budget. Or maybe like within 20% of the budget, meaning I'm coming close to the upper threshold, then you send me an email or like maybe like a, I don't know, you can do even like a Telegram channel for yourself and say, send me a message there so I can see it. And then you can format it. But then there could also be like a, hey, you know, when someone fills up this form, you can do a whole bunch of things, which is that, oh, add them to my database of contacts and then pull more information from that person from their LinkedIn profile. Then you can also be like, using that LinkedIn profile, customize a response based on what their form details are and what next steps you want them to take. If they respond to that first email, then send them this. If they don't respond to the first email, continue this loop of sending them the next email until they respond, in which case you can exit them out of this workflow. So you can see it's such a long process, but all of this makes it easier for you to interface. Maybe you have a lot of talking to with people at, you know, in your line of work, and then you find yourself repeating the same things. And that's usually a hint that some parts of that could be automated because you have figured out the manual repetition parts. Or like, so same thing, even if it's not conversations that you're repeating, it could be actions that you're repeating. So there are certain things that you could automate. For example, if you're using the same Canva template, do you know that you can actually templatize it, upload a spreadsheet, and maybe do like 100 versions of things in just a click? So all of these workflows exist on different tools right now. So it's not just the tool I'm showing you. So just keep that in mind. A lot of softwares are becoming more open, meaning that they are not restricted to only their ecosystem. Everything will integrate into everything else these days. So some popular platforms that are here is Zapier that I mentioned before, and we'll walk through some use cases later. We'll take a look at their website, and I think that's the easiest way for you to understand what's happening there. And then the next one is, I don't know, I know we heard Notion in the chat. Has anyone used Airtable? Yeah, I see a nod.
Yeah, it's used by Kampong Kakis.
Yes. So just similar to Notion, but I think Airtable can do a little bit more and is more integrated with other things, and also has more advanced like customization of how you want it to perform. It's pretty much like a supercharged spreadsheet that can also turn into an interface to get people to submit things, or maybe you want to show people things, and then you can connect different types of data sets. So like, oh, maybe there's a person, there's a photo, maybe there's an age, maybe there's a role, maybe there's preferences, food allergies, like if you have to create like an employee sheet for that. And in the same way, I've used that to create like, oh, this person is good at this thing. This is their this is the skills that we're focusing on developing them right now. And then maybe if I give them a form every week and then they self-report where they are, that gets updated, for example, and then the manager approves, and then that also reflects somewhere and has a weighted, like blended, oh, this is their current state at the moment. So there's lots of applications and you can really design the entire thing. And for those who feel like designing it is a little bit challenging, there's so many creators out there and also templates out there that you can start from scratch. Like you don't have to, without having to start from scratch. And the final example that I have is called Bubble, which allows you to build web applications very easily. This one is really like, it feels really more like the drag and drop. And so by now, there's a typical website format and app format where like, oh, the menu is over here. Maybe I can customize the color, or maybe I can customize the icon. So like based on different use cases, you can try like the drag drop builder or the visual builder. There are other tools out there. And then the easiest way to find them is just type in any of these names and say competitor or what it replaces, and you will find that there are other tools out there. And I think it's worth exploring, because just because I say it's good doesn't mean it's good necessarily for what you want to do. And I really want you to find that thing that feels natural or more pleasant for you to use, especially if you end up using it on a day-to-day basis, and also something that enables you to do what you really want to do, because not all of these tools do the same thing. So I think it's really worth exploring which tool is what. And finally, the last one is make.com. It used to be called Integromat, if I'm not wrong. So they rebranded and it's now called make.com. And this is the one where the slightly more advanced version of Zapier, which is, so if Zapier is no code, make.com is low code, but it's still okay. You can do quite a lot without having to code. And they also have great templates, which I will walk you through later. And it's kind of like, if you have like a more linear workflow on Zapier, for example, I get an email. I identify if this email is maybe like you're working as a customer service agent. So you have different types of tickets coming in. So maybe in the headline, there's always going to be like a complaint or maybe like service request or something like that. So you can make it watch your emails for some, either watch for emails from a certain person or watch for emails with a certain word in the body or in the title or something like that. And then you can get it to extract, put it into a Google Sheet, and then get ChatGPT to analyze it and then write an answer based on whatever you decided you wanted to do. And then it will put that in another column in that Google Sheet. And then you can get it to pull that and either send it directly, but then I recommend that you make it as a draft in your email so that when you're ready, when you approve it, you can make some minor changes and you can manually override any errors or, sometimes misunderstandings. And then you can hit send. So like that's pretty much, you don't even have to read your email. It's automatically in your draft by the time you get to it. So if you feel like you want to go more hands-off with certain things, make.com will help you like do a lot more complicated things.
So if you're a person that has hundreds of work emails coming in every day, could you therefore set it up to read every single one of those emails, summarize them, create a response based on the kind of person you are and your own objectives, and then put it in draft, and then you just go through it and say, that looks good, send, or just change those few words. Wow, okay.
Definitely. And then if you're the type of person where, let's say that you have multiple streams of project, right? Like I know that sometimes when we have projects, the email thread is always the same because we want to continue the thread or at least the reference to the project or at least the sender. Then you can set up even like, oh, reference this PDF about the project brief, who the point of contact is, what their goals are, what the communication preference is. You know, like maybe you have one type of stakeholder who prefers sharp to the point communication, but then maybe you have a different type of stakeholder who needs more guidance and who needs more explanations and needs like a warmer tone than being to the point. You can set all of these up and ask it to reference while it creates a response. And that's pretty cool because previously we were not in that like sentiment analysis kind of era, but we are now there just because ChatGPT can go in and do all of that. Yeah.
I'm picturing like being on a beach in Bali with a laptop, just watching all the drafts come in and just send.
I'm gonna say you don't even need a laptop because technically what this will help you do is keep that laptop away and then look at it on your phone, right? Maybe you have an alarm every day at 1 p.m. and then 6 p.m. and then you're gonna look at all of your drafts at that time and then look at the message, look at the draft, is it good? And then go for it. And sometimes let's say that you have Notion, or maybe if you've heard of it, Trello, or maybe like, these project management databases. Each company has a different one. So maybe it's Basecamp, ClickUp, Asana. So it can even do real-time checks for progress updates. And then use that into feeding into the answer and the responses. So nothing's off limits. Yeah. I hope that gives you all ideas, right? What's possible. Like if you know what's possible, then you're going to look at your life and go, what can I do? What would allow me to have more or unlock more of something else? And that could be close to your values. Like if you want more time, then where can you automate things where you can unlock more time? But if you want more quality in something else, what can you do to improve that quality somewhere else? If you want more structure, where do you feel like this process can give you that structure? And if you want to synthesize something, meaning you have lots of input and information coming from somewhere else, how can you use this as a way to capture and synthesize that information? But then at the same time, if you feel like you want information to flow into multiple locations and you feel like you've been doing that very manually, whether it's to people or platforms, then how can you wait, can I just put everything in a Notion database or a Google sheet and then ask it to, with one automation, post in 6 places? That's possible. Or even schedule. So it's all of them are there. And I want you to imagine what could unlock these gains for you. So quick, type in the chat or maybe jump in. I'd love to hear what's really valuable in terms of is it time? Is it quality? Is it something else that I haven't mentioned? Is it your ability to maybe bring people together? Maybe maybe you do events. Maybe you need to send out calendar invites, or maybe you always need to send out a pre-event email, potentially. If any of you, any of the things that we discussed right now that resonated, feel free to share. I think that will be helpful for me to give you examples of how the same thing can be applied, but to your value. You can type in the chat or unmute if you want to share.
I've got one.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, could you use this in a way where you've got an email marketing database? Say you've got 2,000 people on your database. Obviously, it's good to send the same message to everyone, but even better if you can personalize each one of those. Could it learn the responses from the people that you're sending to and slowly get to know each one of those 2,000 people in a way individually, and then craft email marketing messages directly for them? So each one they're kind of similar, the one that you're sending out, but they're rather than just add their name, add some context about the person based on previous interactions that you've had through your systems. Will it get to know those 2,000 people individually store all that information and go, oh, I see this guy, he's really into this, so I'm going to mention that in this email, but this person over here is not into that, so I'm going to craft a slightly different message, even though the main call to action is the same for both the emails. Is that possible? Wow.
Yes. So, I'm sorry, I also realized I forgot to record. So I'm going to hit record now. Please don't mind me. And I'm going to respond to that. So I think, sorry. Okay, so that type of like what you're talking about is enrichment of contact. So in the sales process or outbound marketing, we call it enrichment of the lead. And it can happen even, for example, let's say you're talking to somebody on LinkedIn and you don't really know a lot. How do you get information about them? So one, there are a couple of different platforms that will allow you to pull information about people from there that are more related to outbound. So for example, there's something called Apollo, there's something called Clay. So these are highly like personalized systems that hold databases about people, their interests, maybe their positions, maybe like what they're into, what the specific roles are, how they're connected to other people. And then you can add your own personal notes over there. So anytime you're talking to people, if you can either, you know, like hold an account with them and do it, or, you know, like maybe you pull an initial information, even from your own CRM or from your own email system, then it's the thing is going to be two-faced. One, you need a way to systematically pull information and emails from this contact, analyze it, synthesize it, and store it in an accessible place that's going to be useful. So think about it as two train of thoughts, right? Then anytime a response is needed to this person, that other arm that's going to do the response is always going to refer to this up-to-date database. It could be a Google sheet that you've created where all of the synthesis lies based on your own responses and their responses to you. And when you can do all of that by like getting it to extract like, oh, can you create, you know, like, can you extract emails from these people? Like, and then synthesize all of the emails and then put in what you think this person responds to based on the language and based on the context, and then put in like, you know, suggestions on how the emails should be angled or framed or communication should be positioned from your perspective. And then, so that will be referenced, and that, so there are two streams of work. So always think about it as, oh, you're getting all of these. In our head, it feels a little linear because we see it as one picture, but then AI who do like collection and synthesis is going to be different from, you know, like a ground worker who's going to write the emails. So then it's about getting the two of them to work and overlap in some areas and reference the same document at some point. So yes, definitely possible. Yeah, and in the same way, for example, some other things that are possible is maybe in your line of work, you either have an employee or like, you know, like that you want to pull in their work from. Maybe all of the work lies in a Notion card or maybe in the emails and the documents that they've submitted. So maybe you're going to assess their skills. Ellen, this is where you can join in and tell me, no, this is not my use case. But if it is, I hope it's helpful. So if they're submitting documents, so like what sort of, how would you know what clarity is? Or how would you know they have skilled up? You know, these days, AI can even analyze visual things. So you can give it examples of this is what skill level at this stage looks like. This is what skill level at this stage looks like. And then ask it to scan either documents or outputs and then store it in a record or a place and have it either have a place where it automatically gets fed these things, either by email or maybe you will upload it to the Dropbox or a Google Drive that it can access. Otherwise, it can just be like a quarterly review for you or your team. So all of that is possible. What also is possible is, for example, maybe you've been doing some, like content on LinkedIn, very, very popular in our line of work. And maybe for Joanna, it's Instagram. So what you can do is you can put the user's handle and then you can ask it to extract information from their publicly available, like either Instagram account or like the LinkedIn account, whatever information they make available. And then based on that, you can personalize the introductory message to them, like a response to them. And then you can use that to make either like talking to people or networking easier. Like maybe we have a base template of maybe if you're looking for jobs, it looks like a certain way. Hey, is there any job available? Or do you have any opportunities? But it feels weird to like send that out of the blue without warming up the person first. And I think the other thing is people do like personalized approaches. It makes them feel seen and it makes it warm even for you to demonstrate that you've taken the time to figure out what works for them. So in that case, you don't have to manually look through everything. You can ask the web browsing function to Google this person or Perplexity to look up this person or their businesses that they have linked from their LinkedIn profile. And then you can collate all of what you learn and see what's in Zapier or even like ChatGPT, you can ask it to rank what's relevant for your particular use case. So let's say maybe you're meeting or like the LinkedIn person has multiple streams of work and you only want them maybe in particular business development, but maybe in this other scope of work, maybe they do gardening. So you don't want to do the gardening things. So you can always ask ChatGPT, only pick out the things relevant for state your use case and your business development and your outcomes. And it will always rank it against these things to make sure that whatever content you're using from the scraping or from the research is feeding into only that use case. So you can even ask, it's filtering. Basically, you're filtering and ask it to use only relevant things. I hope that's helpful. Yeah. Okay, so this is a quick example of Zapier. Like I want you to think very linearly. So when you look on the back end, it doesn't necessarily look like this, but this is how they show their ads. So I want you to think about your workflows this way. So like, depending on what you're doing, when something happens is a trigger, right? When I receive an email, when someone clicks on my ad, when someone sends me a reply, when someone messages me on LinkedIn, when I have a new idea, when I have a video that's ready for edit, or maybe I have a video that's edited and ready. Usually there's an initial trigger where something starts. And then you are like, oh, because that happened, something else needs to happen from there. So here in this case, when someone clicks on an ad and then they fill in, then you get a new lead and then you add them to an email list. And then that email list maybe has an automated journey and all of the people will go through that journey automatically. But in your case, maybe you say, I have, there was this other use case, which is like, oh, I have an idea for a content piece. I'm going to take a voice recording of that, and then I'm going to add it to my Google Drive. And then this system is going to pick up that file from the Google Drive whenever there's a new file, and then it will transcribe it. And then it will put the transcription into a document or maybe like a Google Sheet on this column. It will make a new record every time there's something new. And then the next system will pick up that idea and workshop what that could look like for LinkedIn, for Instagram, for a TikTok video script, for like an email nurture sequence. I don't know, whatever you want. And it will make each of them. And then you can say, if this is ready, then send me a weekly list of tasks that I can do. And from there, automatically update the status and add it to my Notion task list. Boom. You didn't have to do that manually. And then each time, maybe you're the person who likes to walk and talk, or maybe you are doing something and you just want to capture a quick thought. Or maybe you wanted to generate ideas. Or maybe, for example, in your case, Christian, you were talking about like a marketing structure, right? And so if I have an idea, I just want to capture that idea, but then I don't want to act on it until I know it's going to give me value and is aligned with the North Star. So then can that system take that idea, put it into a catalog, and then sort of analyze it and see, oh, is this idea going to contribute to my North Star? Do I know how it will fit in? If there's already a known plan, this is how it will fit in. But if there's no known plan, can I make a new plan that might fit in? And then it's for me to evaluate whether I should take action on that. So it's there. Like you can create something like that potentially for that example that you gave me. Yeah. So this is Zapier. Make also looks a little different, and I'll show it to you. But I want to run you through like some of the benefits. So again, pretty similar to what we've spoken about. It's accessibility. It is the speed at which you can move sometimes, often. You know, like there's only so much hours in the day that we have as individuals, but everything seems to be moving so much faster these days. If I have 50 emails, realistically, how much time will it take for me to manually craft everything, especially if this is context that I can give an AI, right? And then the other thing is just the cost effectiveness of reducing the need for either an extensive team or even like your time, the cost of your time or the cost of hiring people to do a certain function. These workflows can improve that and make it more affordable to be able to do more. And the flexibility. I think this really is like, oh, I tried this workflow, it didn't really work for me, let's change it this way. I think you can get other people to build these workflows for you. So that's definitely an option. I think what you can also do is if you can start building smaller workflows for yourself, you know how that wraps into your world. And I think the best workflows are the ones where without it, you feel like you're, you know, like there's a spanner in your life and everything comes to a halt. Like you don't feel the ease that it creates in your life once you have it. And then suddenly when you take it away, then you'll notice it's missing. I think those are the best workflows because that's how well fitted they are for your life. So I'm going to encourage you to think about how you work, what's going to be helpful for you. If you're a talking person, then maybe how do you capture thoughts and use that workflow? But if you feel like you want to sit and type, or you want to maybe, you know, maybe you like to write analog and that's how you operate best. Can you take a photo, get it uploaded, and then you know, move all of the pieces from there? So what is it that, you know, that's going to shape you and what you want to do? And then integration, it easily connects with a whole bunch of things that we previously could not and had to manually move from tool to tool. And we also know that some tools are so niche that we really want to use them. They do things better. So we want them to communicate with tools that do a bunch of really good things together. So then that's where a full workflow or a work stream is born. And don't feel like in the beginning you have to automate every part of it. The best automations, especially for workflows, happens once you have a manual workflow. Even if there are AI tools in between, if you can run through those workflows manually, and then you know with ease and comfort that you've done it, and you know that's the workflow, that's when you will try to automate parts of it. Because the thing about automation is a lot of different things can break. And I'll show you how actually like it's a little different from how we imagine. Like I said, for us, it's as simple as like take Google Drive, and then I'll, you know, there's a sheet there, and then I'm just gonna edit. But then in the language of automations, it's like, I want this to watch my Google Drive. That really means it will refresh every whatever period you set. If you want it to refresh every minute, do you want it to be on all the time? Do you want it to refresh every month to check for updates? And then what happens when it sees something that's new or updated? Oh, wait, before we even open it, it needs to download it or something like that. Or maybe it needs to pass that information to the next tool in the format that the next tool needs it. So how does that happen? So there's all these like technicalities of like, oh, this is an apple and this is an orange, and how do they talk to each other, kind of a feeling that happens when you're doing automations, which is why I always encourage, try to flow through them manually, and then you can integrate different parts of it step by step. So then you can troubleshoot. Once you have clarity on your workflow, then it's easier to go into the automation section so you can troubleshoot each section because you already know that workflow works. It's just the automation that may not have worked, right? Okay, so an example is you can use Zapier to automate transformation of data between Google Sheets and an email marketing tool. So it can be both ways. You can send information from the Google Sheet into the email marketing tool. Maybe you wanted to create a draft of your campaign using a certain template with new product launches or with new ideas every week or maybe every month, or like you have certain things that you want to collate. And so it will send it there and it will automatically be in draft mode, ready for you to like edit and send. Other things I have seen people do is, how many of you have heard of RSS feeds? RSS feeds. Yes, I see some nods. But just to sort of give you an understanding, a lot of websites have their own like feed of information. So if you're reading a particular blog, then maybe you're reading like, oh, best new tech tools for video taking, or new advancements in search engine, or best HR practices in with AI tools this year. Things like that. So it will automatically collate all of these new things that it's seeing on these platforms. And then something you can do is, let's say maybe you want to start a marketing newsletter, but then Christian, maybe you want to focus more on the strategy rather than the execution. So then for you, it will become important to find sources. For example, this person's LinkedIn feed, or maybe this Substack and things like that. And then you pull all of the new information, and manually for you to go through maybe like hundreds of pieces of information every week, if you want to do it as a weekly newsletter, is quite demanding. Even if you had all the time in the world, cognitively, it is demanding, right? So then what you can do is you can get it to look, maybe your newsletter is about smart strategies for young and small teams. So then you can extract all of that information and ask it to give it a rating of how relevant it is to what you write about. And then you can only check the highest rated ones. And you can even ask it to summarize and give you an angle for how to include each of the points. So then you can really go in and you can be the creative director there rather than feeling like you're stuck in a lot of manual tasks. And then that's where like inspiration really shines. Like you have these ideas, you want to bring them together, you're being the curator, and then you're sharing these ideas in a way that's relevant for your audience to act on. So that's the best use of your energy, then you could potentially do it that way. The other way is also true. Like we discussed, if you are sending email information into Google Sheets, you can totally do that. Maybe you have an e-commerce, or maybe you say like, oh, I wrote this email, I want to see who all opened this email and clicked it. And then can you write a customized response to them based on that, based on what we know about them. So all of that is possible. Next one, but here specifically I'm talking about routine tasks. Think of these as, oh, this is bread and butter. It has to be done, right? Next one is custom applications. So maybe your contacts are in HubSpot, maybe it's in Airtable, maybe it's in Notion, maybe it's in the Google Sheets, something like that. And then you can enrich them based on different learning points. Maybe for every person, you have one column where, and one stream of work where you've gotten ChatGPT to analyze their sentiment and how they respond best, what sort of language or communication style, or even like a personal anecdote to remember, to weave in, that it would be useful. And then you can make a list there. And you can also be like, oh, historically, I have written these many emails to them, out of which they have opened these many and clicked these many. And you can create like a scoring system to know who's the most active. So based on that, you can reach out to those people more. You can also say they have previously purchased with me these many times, or they have previously engaged with me these many times. So you can create all sorts of interesting combinations. And this is why it becomes super custom to you, your use case. Nobody is telling you it needs to be this template. You can start with a template and then tweak it. And then with make.com, again, like I said, you can start with like an idea. You could throw in like, oh, like this word or this idea, and then think of ways to create a whole like content calendar. And then maybe the next step is writing a hook for each of them, and then a call to action. Then the next step is shaping them into the template or the style that you want, and then storing them or automatically going to draft or schedule on LinkedIn. So that is also possible. And then if you want to double up and use a second, I know some people who post on LinkedIn and then email me the same thing. So then you can do that as well, where you just turn that into something more, slightly more personal into an email and have that drafted out and sent out as well. So many examples. And so this is where I want to talk about this concept of APIs and webhooks. You don't have to know too many technical things about this, but this is just a general thing to know how it works. So you have a sense of what sort of data, what sort of real-time data you have access to. Okay, so you might have heard of the name API or webhook in the passing, but they're generally not relevant for the most part when we think about it. But these low-code, no-code platforms typically integrate to each other using an API. I cannot, to be told, immediately recall what is the full form of API, but they essentially allow the passing of information in a and also in a way that information flows easily between platforms to build workflows to leverage on that information. So for example, if I were to use ChatGPT and connect it to Google Sheets, I will use an API if I'm using like make.com or Zapier. But if I'm directly uploading and connecting a Google Sheets from my chat interface, that is not really, we are not using the API key manually ourselves. Okay, so this is how they communicate with each other, sort of like their language. And then here as an example is I'm connected my Google Sheets with ChatGPT so it can manually update different columns. So it's processing all of this in real time and making updates or changes, adding new things. So this would be a use case for how APIs work. The other thing is called a web hook. So this is where we have real-time automation in workflows by triggering actions as soon as specific events happen. So remember when I said everything starts with an action. So what's the trigger? So if someone submits a form, if I have a new idea that goes into a certain Telegram channel, if I have a new audio file in this folder, so that kickstarts. So that's the action that kickstarts the next bunch of steps. So we will watch for something very, very specific. So that's typically called a webhook. That's all you need to know, really. We've already covered this. You don't have to get too technical. Don't feel like it's too overwhelming or hard to step towards. And so think of it as, oh, wait, I wanna post like LinkedIn updates as soon as ChatGPT created something in a Google Sheet. So that's a webhook that, like multiple webhooks in the process. When this happens, do this. When this happens, do this. When this happens, do this. Typically, they're all single step processes that we will string together. Okay? And these are important just to keep in mind because one, efficiency of transfer. If we don't know what's possible, then it's really challenging what to look for. It can be a little overwhelming in the beginning to figure out like what's the exact webhook or like definition of webhook I need here. But you will get familiar the more you practice, like, oh, sheets, then I needed to locate this cell or maybe this file or this name or this folder. You're just knowing the type of the quality of the data that you're looking for. Then integration, this is going to be helpful to know, oh, this tool integrates with this tool. This doesn't talk to this tool. So I need to know because then I need to make information flow. Then the final thing is real-time updates, which is what you need. Like if it cannot communicate, if it cannot update, then it will be a relic in the past, really. Yeah. So I have 4 levels of AI integration, but before I go into this, I want to give you each 10 minutes. We've talked so much. I want to give you 10 minutes for you to write down at least 5 to 10 very wild ideas of what you could automate in your life. No rules. It's okay if they turn out impossible. but I just want you to ideate. I'll give you 10 minutes. We'll come back in 10 minutes. It's 11:08. So we'll come back 11:18. Yeah? Okay, we're close to 11:18. 2 more minutes. No rush, but if you're ready, feel free to hop on. Okay, if you are back, do hop back on and give me a thumbs up. I really do want all of you to identify opportunities within the scope of what's around you in your day-to-day life, whether at work or in your personal life. So I hope the time to ideate gave you at least some initial thoughts. Give me a thumbs up if you're back so I can continue. Nobody's back yet. You're back. Thanks, Dorina. Was it hard to write down ideas or was it easy? Even if it felt like hard, like weird ones.
Yes, and I also use ChatGPT's help to come
Oh,
up with ideas.
okay. Great. That's good. Anybody else? If you're back, give me a thumbs up. Okay, we'll wait for just 1 more minute and then we'll move forward. Do you get some ideas, Christian?
I've got 3.
Okay. Okay,
So-
hold on to them. Not yet. Not yet. I will ask you to share, but I want you to workshop with them first. Okay, so we'll move forward. So now I want you to either have your phone notes app for you to like type some stuff out, or a book and a pen or pencil so you can circle and write some notes. So sometimes the ideas are very large or very complex. What I want you to identify is which level of AI integration some of these ideas are at. And like I also mentioned, preferably ideas are already done and tested manual first before you try to automate them. So just to give you a sense of where you're at, especially for the ideas that really spoke out to you, I want you to note whether you've done it personally before, meaning like, oh, I've taken this email and I have copied it and put it in the ChatGPT and then asked me to give me a response for it. And then I have taken that and copied it back to my email. And then maybe I might have edited a little bit, but that's okay. So that's a manual AI workflow. So it's helpful to know if you've done that before. Okay, and then I'm going to take you through the 4 levels. So just make a mark. It could also be possible if you are able to identify, actually, this is a combination of maybe a couple of different levels, because the levels are not based on expertise necessarily. The levels are also based on the complexity of the task on hand. The more things you need it to do, the more complex the workflows may become. So it's helpful if you identify actually there's a smaller part, or maybe I can break it into smaller parts first. So as I'm going to do each level, I'm going to give you like a short minute to note down, and then I'm going to move forward to the next level, just so you have that for yourself. Okay. So first of all, like, why am I breaking it down into levels, right? Like, it's a strange thing. I can automatically go into workflows and build into it. But I think when we are learning anything, we do need it easy to attempt and easy to access. And it can be very frustrating if we jump into it all of a sudden without a lot of knowledge. It can feel overwhelming. And also it builds confidence if we're able to like master one step and go on to the next. It's sort of like good job. Yeah, I did that. Yeah, that's right. Kind of a feeling. So I want you to be able to tap into that and access that as you learn. And then each step of the way is for tailored solutions. So like I said, maybe actually some of the ideas that you have are very large, complex ideas. I don't want them to feel like they're out of your reach. So if you can identify, like, actually this breaks up into a couple of different multiple parts. Can I workshop smaller sections of them individually? And then later when I step up, I will make it a larger complex map, because that makes it easier for you to access parts of the automation without needing to do the full flow immediately. And then the larger picture will fall into place once you workshop smaller things. So that really is a custom solution. Only until you implement, you won't know like, oh, actually I need it to be this way. So if you go for a large one, all of a sudden, things break in different points, then it's hard for you to figure out, is it a technicality thing, or is it that I don't want the output in this format or in this style, for example? Then scalability and efficiency. It's just more efficient if you are running through the motions of it. Think of it as an SOP, but for machines. So it's easier to scale. Okay, so first one is level 1, and I call it simple automation tasks. Okay, and then level 2 is connecting multiple tools. Then level 3 is customized workflows. Then level 4 is full-scale automation for those customized workflows and any analytics related to them. Analytics doesn't have to mean like the data-driven analytics, but just making sure that all parts of it flow through and you're looking at it in a detailed sense. Like you do get like error logs and like, oh, how many times what was fired when you look at these workflows sometimes. So these are the 4 I'll walk you through, but if you have any initial ideas and you look at your ideas right now and just put some numbers down. Is it level 1? Is it level 2? Can you break up? If you have something that is a full-scale automation that you like you feel like that's possible, can you identify different sections of it that can be a combination of level 1 and 2s that can be strung together? Write down some initial ideas. Okay, so level 1 is basic integration. So it could be like task. You go into ChatGPT and you give it a prompt. It's like, I'm going to write LinkedIn posts using ChatGPT. I'm going to write this email using ChatGPT. I'm going to write the script for this video using ChatGPT. I'm going to assess the quality of this thing using ChatGPT. Something, you're doing something there. You're starting a new thread over there. So if any of your workflows integrate this type of initiating a new thread, which is like a single platform, I'm doing something, the output comes on this platform type of thing. Typically, a lot of them tend to be in the level 1, and they also don't need a lot of context to begin with, but will benefit from more context in an advanced level. Meaning like level 1 would be like, yeah, I'm just going to go write it. And then maybe eventually I can save it to memory, or maybe make a custom GPT, or maybe like save all of what I write into a PDF to give it as an example. So that's level 1. Okay. So it's basic content generation. And a lot of that we tend to be moving in and out using ChatGPT fairly frequently these days, which is amazing. Like we've come a far way in being able to perfect that craft. So the best thing that you can do is note down the style of prompting that is working for you in these platforms. Like, what are the things that you're queuing in about it? That will be helpful for you to think about. Okay. So level 2 is the next step, which is intermediate. You're automating content generation and storage. So if you are at level 1 and you are manually going in and creating ideas and then manually copying that out somewhere, even if you ask it to, output in a format that you can upload somewhere, you still want to figure out a way to automate it. So maybe the next step would be to figure out, oh, how can I automate this in the level 2 way, right? Maybe you will have like content themes that you're going to fill into a Google Sheet, and then it will come out on the other side for you with the generated content and storage. So that will be level 2. And then this is going to help you figure out how to string together eventually in the more complex things. If, for example, you wanted, first, if you figure out the storage, then you can figure out the distribution of this to different platforms. Okay. Level 3 would be slightly more advanced. And then it's like enhanced content management, maybe even with custom GPT. And I'll give you an example of this. One with custom GPT and one with memory after I run you through some of the other interfaces first today. But this is where, like, actually, if you enable like access to your drive on your ChatGPT, which you can connect directly from a drive now, you can have a little bit more enhanced content management. There's slightly more complex ways to explore and access and give instructions. And all of this will make it super easy. So I'll give you an example. So at my line of work, we've been restructuring what it means to create proposals and briefs and make them super personalized. And I also want to give people like customized pathways for them to achieve their goals for their organization. So previously, I used to manually write all of the proposals. So in the end, what I did was I made a custom proposal maker, GPT, for myself that will understand the context of my clients and then write it in the style that I would, and also taps into my wisdom and my lived experience of how I would create these pathways for them. So there's 3 interesting things that I need to put together to make the final output. But I have not automated it where the output goes into my email directly yet. But it's something that I can, for the most part, copy and paste somewhere else. But that already is more complex because I just have to go in and it will remember a lot more things, including like how I price things, what my margins are, or maybe like how I can scope things if I were to reduce it and give it at the budget that they want. So for example, if you're constantly finding yourself creating content of a certain genre, then maybe you want to feed it like, what's your angle? What's your position? How do you talk about it? Feed some of your previous stories to it. So each time you have an opinion that you're coming up with, it will fall back and go, okay, how does this relate to everything else I know about how you approach this when you write the script? Because there's a difference between, hey, I'm going to talk about maybe computers versus, hey, I want to talk about the right computer choice for you if you are going to be traveling a lot and need something light yet powerful, right? So it's always going to, it's going to wear that lens of however you want to treat your content and your message based on whatever's available. So tailor it for your content. And then the next part is tailor your organization. It's multi-step in level 3. Then the final one is more integration. Think of it as a full workflow with automated either like scheduling or even like automated workflows. So think of it as end-to-end. So something that I did at one of the previous companies, and this was even before ChatGPT. So there were no ChatGPT interfaces there, but I know how we could enhance it. So we would have like an event booking come in from a type form. And then once they chose what it was, that event booking would go into our accounting software and draft an invoice automatically. And then it would put up a task card to start the event production. And then it would lay out all of the steps based on the event they chose. So it was templatized each way. So then the person who was running the event can go, like tick the checklist. It would even have like drafts of the email ready with the person's name and based on what they chose for the event, like into it. All they had to do was manually send it. And then once that's ready and it's done, it will just automatically move through the different stages once different things on the checklist were ticked off. So it's almost like it was project managing for us. And that information, we would also have to set up a Zoom for the event that they chose with the customization of their name and the company name. So then that was also automated. We would automatically ask Zoom to do that. And then, Zoom has polling, right? And polling makes events interactive. So we would also automate the polls to set up based on the event. All of this was just one click. They enter this flow and then they go out of this flow. And then post-event, it would collate all of the people that were on the Zoom and it would count the number of people and then the number of reactions. We even use things like Menti, which is what I'm using. So it would do a sentiment analysis of like the emojis that were used and how engaged people were and give a snapshot to the organizers and put it into a PDF report. So like this was pre-ChatGPT. So we already did a lot in the workflow. And I think that can be even more enhanced if I put in like the custom AI, like, brain there to analyze things and make it more personable. So think of like systems where you being able to step away and give yourself either like time, quality, or structure for whatever it is. So these are like full workflows, whether you're nurturing one person's talent all the way from joining to leaving or joining to next quarter, things like that. Or maybe it's like a workflow for you for an entire month that you run an automation for. Or maybe it's an automation for every 2 weeks of ideas that you have, something like that. Okay. And then the analytics part comes in, and this is where when you're doing full workflows, it's helpful. You don't have to look at it every day, but it's helpful to know if there are any errors in the automation, because if one part of the thing breaks, other things don't perform. Generally, it's okay, but every once in a while, there might be some things where, like maybe this software changed or updated, and the way it passes information is slightly different. So these are all things that happen. So, oops, wrong one. But anyway, I wanted to now take you through and show you make.com first on the topic of the full automation. Give me one moment. Let me share my screen. Make.com. Okay, I found it. Screen. Okay, can you all see? Give me a thumbs up if you can see, so I know you can see it. Okay, so in make.com, they have a free plan for you to start with, and this is where you can make really complex things or even like a single step thing. So on the free plan versus the paid plan, what's different is that sometimes they will put certain applications as premium or certain actions as premium, either because they know that can be monetized really well. Example, I run ads and I need to nurture my leads. They know that people who have an ad budget will be the ones who will pay for it. So they will put that under the premium one. But then some of the other things would be that maybe it's more expensive because they're communicating between different softwares, or maybe they know there's a certain demand, which is where maybe a certain amount of payment comes in. So you can be on different plans, but you can start small. So instead of create a new scenario, like what happens is when I click that, they call a scenario as it's referring to one workflow. And they have so many apps. JSON is code, but you can see there's Google Drive, there's Gmail, there's even Notion, there's ChatGPT. OpenAI in general, as you know, it is ChatGPT. Whisper is their model that transcribes audio to text. DALL-E is the text to image. Then you have so many things happening here. Even a phone number, Google Calendar, your email provider, which is ActiveCampaign or Dropbox, So there's a lot of things, and it can feel really overwhelming. Like, where do you even begin if you're a first-time person? So I recommend, until you really know what you want to build, you can go here to templates. And that's a really amazing place to start because you can tinker around with what is available. Like 1-step, 2-step, 3-step things. So if you notice, create Google Calendar events from Notion, and it's describing that this as, oh, create a Google Calendar based on something in Notion. So it's going to look at Notion and look at particularly a particular database, which will have like a date and an event time and a name to that card. And it's going to add that to the Google Calendar of an account of your choosing. And at this stage, you potentially can even add other emails to be added to it. So maybe there's an email field that you can map to who gets invited. And then let this one, for example, sync Notion databases to Google Calendar. So if you notice, one of the things that's happening is it starts from Notion here, and they have this really interesting thing called a router. It's pretty much what a router does. It's saying I'm receiving information here and I'm sending it 3 different ways. So you have this module called a router that you can build into your workflows. So what is happening here? I'm going to assume that you can either do 3 things or send it to 3 different places. So I'm going to read this, by automatically creating, updating, deleting events. Okay. And then you can read more about the information later. But here I'm going to say, I'm going to look at this Notion database, and then I'm going to take this Google Calendar, and then I will update Notion saying I have made a Google Calendar invite. Or maybe it's just, this one is like I just made it. And this one is maybe like I made it and I need to delete this record or update this record in some way. Right. So in the same way, maybe a couple of you can pop in some apps that you want to see if there are templates of, and we will look for them together. I know we already did Notion. If there are any other asks, you could save Telegram messages to Google Sheets. So if this is your main source of talking to people, taking orders, you can keep track of them. Any asks for? Let's see this. Yeah.
How about I have a content calendar on Notion. I want to publish it on Facebook.
Let's see what they have for Notion. You can build it, I can tell you that. They have one the other way around, which is add Facebook pages posts to Notion. For example, like maybe you're watching your competitors, or maybe you've published something and then you want to make sure that you capture the URL and the actual published format. Let us see. This is interesting. Conduct SWOT analysis on competitors with ChatGPT and add information to a new Notion page. So all you have to do is you just put in the name in the Notion database, and then obviously it's too simplistic when I look at it this way that there's 3 things happening here, but you can make it more complicated if you want. As I'm looking for Juvina's requests, there is one that says create a brand strategy with ChatGPT and Notion. So if you notice, these are all the multi-step processes that are happening in, but when you click in, it will give you more information. I will click into one of the options. Let me see. Create a brand strategy. No, let me see. Publish. Facebook. Let's see what's there for Facebook. They post new Facebook videos to Slack. Until they don't seem to have publicly available templates to post to Facebook here, but I can assure you that it is possible. And it could also be that maybe you want to for example, this is where like potentially like if you have HubSpot or maybe one of the other scheduling tools, you can ask them to schedule rather than natively Facebook. Because I know Facebook is sometimes a little harder. Where else can we publish? Okay, so I will click into an example of maybe this one. Automate posting from blog to social media with ChatGPT because it's relatively similar-ish. Just assume that instead of the blog, you might just shift this module to Notion later. So that's how you start with templates. So when I made this account, it's all new, and I said I don't really have a lot of experience, so it will try to guide you. Each step of the way will need a little bit more finessing and connecting to your personal accounts and running through like examples. But I want to walk you through an initial, like what happens when you choose a template. Okay, and then when each of you go home and try some of these templates, if you're facing any issues, it's likely, I want to give you a heads up, it's likely that you will run into random errors. Do ChatGPT for solutions or just hop on to Circle, or you know how to find me either on my LinkedIn or WhatsApp or, you know, like my email. I will share that with you towards the end. You can reach out to me and I will guide you through some parts of this. Don't feel like you have to navigate this alone, okay? But I do want you to try. So here is where it says, it's a WordPress blog and it's watching for posts, okay? Then it goes into ChatGPT, and then text parser means it's looking for something that is usually we want to extract, oh, sorry, what happened to that? Usually we want to extract information of a certain type. So if we're working with text, it needs to know I'm working with text and I want to workshop it and shape it a certain way. Then it goes into our router. So this is where like it's going to take whatever this is, output, and then share it to X, which is Twitter, create a post, or here maybe create, send it to ChatGPT, and I'm going to assume, because here at the end it says get a file and create an organization image post on LinkedIn. So it's actually inputting the text into one of the Canva templates that ChatGPT probably chose. Here in this case, you can even manually swap out the template by using a Canva module. And then it goes to post on LinkedIn. And here it is, choose a Facebook page to create a post on. So what will happen is like, and then you notice like some of them have this thing, you have to watch out which of them are like premium modules or what it is. So here it's asking you connect to your WordPress account and create a connection. And then anytime that, you know, like you don't know how to do something, typically if you click this, it will guide you on how to make that connection and how to choose it. So if you're ever unsure, just look for this and it will actually show you, because they have so many platforms and it will all look and feel a little different, okay? So once you have that, it will also ask you to connect to your ChatGPT connection. So here in this case, I'm actually like going to show you what the connection is because I made an API connection. The API, are you still able to see my screen or has it not changed? You are, right? You're seeing the connection to make screen. Yeah. So you have to, this ChatGPT account is think of it as a back end account, not the front end, the chat-based account that you have. So when you go to the account, it will show you view API keys, and then you just, it's kind of like a secret connection key. Think of an encryption, like a bunch of letters, like a password. Then you will have to input that. And then it will also have this unique ID related to your account. So this knows which account to connect to. And I have to tell you, every time you use API, you do need to put in your own payment information, but you can top up as little as $5 for things to run. And that will, you know, it's cheaper than the payment that you would make for a ChatGPT Pro account. The API runs on this one. So, but it's also cheaper because we don't have the front end information interface. So the way that it counts how much you need to pay, it also has a calculator on your account. So like under usage, it will show you like, oh, if you intend to do this, how much might you expect to pay? So there's all of that. So going back to this one, and then it says which model to choose. Here, after you connect the account, you can choose which model is available. So here in this case, I'm going to choose the 4.0 and then select the user role. Usually I will just say user. And then they've created a prompt for us. It's part of the template. So here is where I told you, like, if you know how to talk to ChatGPT, this is where you already done the motions of that and you can edit. And looking at this base is helpful because these are all like, oh, on a WordPress, what all information can I pull from a WordPress blog page? So for you to look through all of this and really try to figure out is very overwhelming. So I would suggest when you're here and you're interfacing with a new module, just go to ChatGPT and say, hey, I'm making a make.com scenario for this to happen. And I'm at the WordPress step and I want to make the blog post connect to ChatGPT to extract this information. What should I choose? Can you guide me step by step? Just ask this to ChatGPT and ChatGPT will give you step-by-step options of even like what modules you select here. So, and these are all like, like the information that you don't manually copy, that it will just extract and pass because of the API connection. And so it's the content, it's the URL, the slug is the URL, the link is the main URL link. And then they're saying your task is to write SEO-friendly tweet, LinkedIn post, and Facebook post in the best format for that platform. So here is where if you have a point of view and other things that you may have workshop, you mix and match with this, and then say, add that in to workshop it. And then if you have anything else, you add it in here. But if not, you can just say continue. And then after that, the text parser is pretty much it workshopping those things here. It's not necessarily like any particular connection. So you can see here, there's a tick mark because I've connected my ChatGPT account already. But because I didn't make the WordPress connection, it's showing you like, oh, exclamation, this has not been connected yet. And then here you connect a Twitter account maybe. Here, I don't want to do that. And here, let's see what this is doing. Select your connection. Oh, here. So this is what the API thing will look like. It's literally those numbers. And then if you are not sure where to find those numbers, you just click here. Okay. Yeah, and then here is where like it will ask you to connect either to a LinkedIn page or a LinkedIn account. And then once you choose that, again, the same as this, you can pull a bunch of different information or choose which account you are on. So here, Facebook post, let's see if my Facebook connection. Just wait, it will happen. Continue. Okay, so here is where you give it permissions. If you want to really edit, I would say edit. But I would say, like, because I manage a lot of accounts, there's a lot of things here. But you might see whatever is relevant. So I'll say continue as me because these are the pages, the assets that I have under my name, under my Facebook account. And then once that's done, it will go back to here and it's connected. And then it will ask me to select the page that I want to publish to. So I have maybe like Anya. I'll just choose my name. That's a page I made at some point. So if you go and find Anya. So here it's connected and it's ready to post. It just needs this URL to do it. So once you do this, you are ready to set up. It will give you this option to publish and save over here. And it will also give you this option to sort of run an example or do like test diagnostic. So it will run each module and see if there are any errors and throw up any errors. And It will email you if there are any errors at any point as well. But just keep in mind, when we're on a free plan, and also it's very expensive to watch all the things at all times. A lot of these may run in 15-minute intervals, meaning like if you say, oh, I'm going to input this idea into my Google Sheet and then I want you to workshop it, it will not happen immediately because there's a time lag. Then these automations run they refresh for a given amount of time. And then once you publish it, you will be able to see all of that and change the interval. Like maybe you don't need it to run every month or every day. Maybe you need it to run every week. I don't know. So in this case, you can do that. And here also, you can keep tweaking the prompt to test your output until you're happy before it even publishes. Which is why I would say instead of, maybe sending it to 3 different places, you need to be able to master this module first. So instead of going in different places, maybe you might even add just like a document here to see the output before it goes and publishes. Because if your reputation is stake and your audience might be like, what is happening? You don't want to go into that stage. So that is pretty much me. Any questions, or are you give me a thumbs up if you feel like, yeah, go for it.
Just a question on terms of obviously you're going left to right there in this example. So could you have multiple sources coming in from the left-hand side? Say you've got 50 sources. I assume then going into a router would then take it into ChatGPT, or maybe not. Maybe they'd all go into ChatGPT. But could you have many different sources as your initial point, feeding into one place? ChatGPT then takes all that information, summarizes it, and then does the rest of it.
I would say no, because ChatGPT cannot handle multiple sources at the same time. So think of how you might structure it even more rigidly and for ChatGPT to access it. ChatGPT probably works best when you give it a collated thing. So when you have multiple sources, think about, oh, can I make maybe a Google Sheet? In this column, all of this flows into, from this particular website, and make a new record each time a new thing is added. And then maybe I have a different source. It goes into this column or this sheet. So you can make different sheets or columns or rows for your data. Think of what might give it the cleanest way to add things. If you need it next to each other, you can have them next to each other. If you need them in different sheets, you can have them in different sheets. Then you can tell ChatGPT to access that entire file to use.
Okay, so in this example, you would between WordPress and OpenAI, you would create Google Docs, have all your 50 going into Google Docs, and then from the Google Docs element, go straight into OpenAI.
I would actually structure it a little differently, and this is where looking at Zapier would help. And I'll show you in just a bit. But to sort of help you identify, I will actually have multiple scenarios. They're not even going to be in the same scenario. Just because the source is different, maybe the destination is incidentally the same, but because the source is different, what they have to do with the source information could be a little different. So I will just have one step, like, oh, take from here, put here. A new scenario, take from here, put here. New scenario, take from here, put here. You don't have to have them all in the same thing. It's just that everything is being collated into the same file. Then in your new big scenario, you're going to make take this file and watch for this as a reference. That will be a trigger. And then trigger ChatGPT to do this. Yes, so that is how I would simplify it. And that's where I said, look, level 1 to level 4, because to collate everything is a bunch of level 1s. Yeah. Any questions, Juvina? I think you can start with this as an example, but then you have this, so you can just start with the module with a free, a new one, and build it and see if you can even just one step Notion and send it to Facebook page as the module. Try not to overcomplicate it. Build small things that you can then add more nuance to and update it. So if you can publish first, then you can ask it to workshop next. maybe you can create a new scenario to workshop next. They don't even have to be in the same scenario. So just as a way to take you to, you're able to see my screen, right? So let's go. Are you able to see Zapier or no? It's still make.com. Zapier is okay. So I'm gonna ask this example, like what was the exact ask you had, Jumina? Oh, you muted. Is it publish Notion content to Facebook?
Yeah, Notion. So I have a Notion content calendar on Notion to publish onto Facebook. Yeah.
Let's see, I've actually never used this feature, but should be able to. And you can see a lot of the examples. There it is. So it's going to read the database and then create the Facebook post. Okay, it's a little bit more complicated because it needs to watch for what date. So here, the interface is so different, but as you can see, it's very linear, right? So here, the trigger is new database item. It says Notion, and then the event is new database item. So this is assuming that every time you have a new item in that content calendar database, it needs to create the post. But actually, maybe you need it to be updated database item. Maybe it has a certain status next to it that will trigger the Facebook page post. Maybe it should be ready to publish, right? Because you don't want to publish ideas in a draft mode. I'm assuming that if you have a content calendar, there's lots of like ideas in draft or ideas in content creation. So you actually have to make a trigger. So for that, you have to think about what the cleanest way for this system who doesn't have the context of a human being to identify it. So I will say maybe like these days, even Notion has automations in its database. So I will say if I turn ready to publish, then it will create a check mark in a separate column that I can create as an automation. Like maybe it says push to Zapier, whatever, for my reference. As soon as, that check mark is detected here, it will publish this.
Or like you can't use dates. Like, can I like put a
Can. So,
date?
but you can. So that's where it gets complicated, right? Like because you're thinking it's a one step. But here, instead of this, create page post. Actually, maybe you need to create page post. And then when you're running the action, you need to look for the date and time set on that post. And then it will try to match that and use that as the input over here. So you have to do a little bit more. Let's try connecting Notion. So here, very importantly, give it access to what you're doing. So like it will give you these, make sure that you give it the right permissions that you need. So here in this case, I don't really have a calendar. Do I have a calendar? No, I don't have a calendar. Anyway, whatever. We will just give it access for now. Just for you to see what's possible. Okay. So here is the updated database item. And then in the account, then this is where you have to set the trigger. So it's like, which database do I need to look for? So in this case, I think I have something called a link directory or something like that. So sometimes it may not turn up. Let's see, link. No. Okay, content topic ideas. Clearly, I seem to have something like that. Okay, so once you have the database that you've selected, it's trying to test the trigger. So I would say, like, again, here you notice there's all these different fields, right? You have to choose what field to watch for. Okay, so I would say, okay, just say, okay, continue with this record because it's a test. And then I create a Facebook post. So straight away, don't publish it to your public page. Create a test page to run these tests with. Or a private account that nobody knows, like a burner account when you're doing these tests. That's one big tip that I will leave you with. And again, just ask ChatGPT, hey, I want to set these up. So like actually here, my next step is I actually needed to look for only when the condition is met, which is what I was like, oh, only if the status is this archived is one of the things that I do where is it archived or not, like a checkbox. If it's false, that means it's not checked. If it's true, it means the check is on. So you need to choose the condition. Exactly matches. Like the status or maybe, and you can also add rules. So it's a lot of conditional like computer logic. So I described as I'm going to watch this and this particular feature is meant only for the Zapier bot to look at. And if that condition is met, it will start this workflow. So you need to set that for each of your triggers, whether here or on make.com. So then when something is met, I will say create a Facebook post. And then actually, if this condition is met, I also need to, maybe I need to delay. Or maybe I need to build a if and, like if there's a date, if it's today, publish immediately. If it's a date in the future, schedule it or something like that. So definitely explore all of that. And Zapier is very friendly. I would say the challenging part is wrapping our brains around the computer way of thinking. We may not used to be knowing these hard boundaries and the logical flow of thinking. So that's where we might have to think about, oh, what is it? The specificity with which I need to give the workflow for things to connect. How much, like it has access to all of the data because of the APIs. Whereas it's very different. Our mind chooses to focus on things when we look at things. We can ignore that other data is around it, right? When you have the Notion table, actually there's all of the created on, edited by, when was the last edit and all of those things. And this information is all available to this. So you need to help it focus and channel and point it to different things. So it would require more than one step. So think of it as look for an updated item in the database. If these conditions match, take this, like time, schedule it on the Facebook page. Like I think after you create page post or during the create page post, potentially there's a scheduling function. I have not personally done this one, but definitely hit me up if you have any challenges. And the other thing I would say is Zapier also functions very similarly. There is a free plan. And you can even create like the same type as make.com. I think they call it Canvas. So this is the linear flow, but the other way is also possible. Yes. Any questions or any thoughts? Yes, Joanna.
So, what's the main difference between Make and Zapier?
I would say my experience with Zapier is it's not good with really, really complex things. Like, let's say you wanted to go from here to this, and then you have this big idea. It's not always the easiest. I think Zapier is great for quick, short steps, and then you can have a bunch of them. And it's very linear. So I think if you can even get workshop with ChatGPT to break down what you want to do, into tangible steps with Zapier. I have noticed that Zapier can become more expensive very quickly if you want some of the more premium apps. I do feel like it is in the more premium sort of pricing, even though the functionality of make.com is a lot more. But make.com is low code. Zapier is no code. So the difference is sometimes, you looked at the router, you looked at the text parser. So sometimes you'll be looking at it and I'm like, what do I do here? Like there might be moments if you are no code until you get used to navigating those modules. I'm sure even ChatGPT can write anything in code if you want to. I have built custom things. I don't know how to code, but I made like a tarot reading website. When someone clicks on a card and it gives you a reading from a multi-deck of cards by just following ChatGPT's instructions. So I can tell you with fair confidence, if you ask for ChatGPT's instructions and know how to workshop and converse with it and give it feedback on how to improve the code, it will direct you and help you with your make.com requests. But also, I'm going to ask you to explore these modules because some of you may work better in the fluid platform that make.com is. As soon as you log into Zapier, you can see it's very linear. So if you feel like the structure is fundamentally changing how you're seeing things, that can also be a big difference in how your brain is latching onto some of these concepts. One can feel easier than the other. So I would encourage you to go with the one that feels easier and try to create a bunch of like single step, two-step actions rather than directly going, I'm going to take, in our mind, it is one step, but in reality, it's multiple steps for this platform, right? As you saw. So I will encourage you to try creating single connections or single step, like read this email, access my email, start with small things, get it to comfortably do things that you want it to. If you can confirm that they are working, then add on steps and complexity and build sort of like the automations muscle in that sense. Yeah. Any other questions? I'm sure you'll have lots. And I think it's good that you have questions. And I hope this session gave you an idea of what you could start with and where you could start workshopping from. Just like how you saw there were templates there, just look into Zapier as well and ask it to create something for you using its AI, or even like look for certain things and it will give you, like how to create different things. The other cool thing is you can also create chatbots and other things with this, using automations and even integrating like ChatGPT, which I think is interesting because it would be a similar feeling as talking to ChatGPT, but it's automatically storing your information in a database. So if you feel like that interface will help you, then you can use that function. Yeah, but remember, anything that says beta means there's lots that can be broken. Yeah. And just as a way to wrap up, I wanted to ask you all to like create a wish list of things that you wish you can automate now that you know what are the possibilities. Honestly, there's so many possibilities that you can apply in so many areas. So I'm really curious, especially like Ellen and Joel, I don't know how much, like was relevant for you. But I think this potentially sparked off quite a lot of things and potentialities. Like, yeah, it's possible to automate lots of things, move information in certain ways. I will also say, look at videos of people who are automating highly specific things that you are looking for. So just Google it if you really cannot. I'll just reach out to me. I'm also glad to help you. So there's lots of possibilities. But yeah, just as a way to wrap up, I would love to hear what was on your list earlier. Did anything get added? Do you want to automate? Try creating custom workflows? Read all the newsletter you're signed up for. Read LinkedIn posts by people you follow and summarize all the content into a spreadsheet. Yeah, I love that. It could even be like a custom newsletter for you of all the newsletters you want to read. So very meta. You can even link out if you want to do more, but a high level summary of what's interesting for you.
I mean, that was my next step, actually. There was a second step after that, was to then, from that spreadsheet, create a LinkedIn post, a weekly LinkedIn post called 3 New Marketing Things That I Learned This Week.
Mhm.
From that
Nice.
database. But also, I've been creating a marketing playbook for about a year and a half, just full of interesting things and links and tips and hints and ways to do things in marketing. It's like 100 pages long now. To then take information from that spreadsheet that has been,
Yeah.
listening to all the people I follow on LinkedIn or the newsletters, and then feed that somehow into
Yeah.
my marketing playbook, so that I know that it's saved into my
Yeah.
own playbook.
Amazing. Yeah. We have another one, which is creating a custom GPT. So potentially versions of what you want could be a custom GPT as well. So I think do watch out. I think that event is in a week, if I'm not wrong, or 2 weeks. I will teach you how to do custom GPTs specifically for you. And it's more than just a PDF upload. So what do you even feed it? And things like that. I think that's going to be interesting. Yeah. It's on the 21st of June, Friday, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Make audience engagement more efficient by sifting through comments according to sincerity. Yes, totally. I think that's so cool. You can even, work with custom, like ChatGPT, to come up with custom metrics that you're looking for and ask it to score comments. And then you can make the spreadsheet filtered. Searching organization keen in topics about travel, DEI, send emails and proposal to offer myself as a, yes, absolutely. You can look for feeds, or even like, let's assume that you're scrolling LinkedIn or you heard about somebody that somebody's interested. You can have a database of your talking points and interests, and then you can have like ideas for yourself that you could either voice record or type. And like, even if they're ideas and they're not perfect, I think it's okay. And then maybe you can have like a separate, like, oh, this person is interested in this, or this opportunity is interesting. But then a lot of us, personally, I've also experienced it. Sometimes it can be really challenging to, either because we're at capacity, it's hard to follow through, or on a second level, just on like a emotional level, we're like, oh, this is new or uncomfortable, or maybe we're not sure. And this is taking that hesitation out of that moment and asking ChatGPT to go through the motion of that for you and just like at least draft it. All you have to do is hit that button and send it. So I'm looking forward to you building all of these. And you can customize it based on your idea database as well as the opportunity presented. So lots of mix and match is possible. And I don't know how many of you have tried, but a lot of the database, like, Airtable has its own AI, Notion has its own AI. So don't feel like you have to make these automations only on third-party softwares like Zapier or Make.com. What you could potentially do is, because these tables and databases in Notion or Airtable can pull in information from different databases within your ecosystem as well. And then once everything is lined up, you can set a custom prompt for an AI field and write a message right there. So when that field is filled, then you can trigger an email to go out from Zapier or from Make.com. So something like that. So all the way until the sending, it can be in the same platform. Yeah, very excited. Thank you all so much for coming today. If there's anything that you'd like to share or ask, I'm around. I will share my information. But I wanted to share that we have, especially for the new people, Go Digital ASEAN is a program, and there's lots of events and other learnings as part of this program. If you feel like you want more guidance as part of Hatch, which I'm a part of, we're offering consultations for free if you manage to hit a 75% completion rate. So if you're keen either to get the consultation for yourself or your organization and you want to attend more of these sessions, so ask me how you can get these. I will definitely walk you through these. And these sessions are meant to guide you on specific challenges and help you walk towards implementing things. So reach out, either visit us at our website, but don't worry, these slides are all available later. But if you want to say hello or reach out to me or be like, I made this automated scenario, I don't know what's wrong, I'm also available. So wishing you all happy AI automation. The next time I see you, I'm very excited to see what worked, what didn't work, and all of the learnings you're going to bring. Thank you all so much for staying. And I think with that, we've come to the end of today's session.
Thanks so
Thank
much. Really
you.
fascinating stuff.
Yeah. See you all next session. Bye.
Bye.